to pull anything from consent? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Dr. Robinson, seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. There is no unfinished business. That takes us to new business. Mr. Superintendent, AD1.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Under new business AD1, authorization to request a formal Attorney General opinion regarding board and district advisory committee meetings. I recommend the board authorize its general counsel to request a formal Attorney General's opinion on the question of whether the school board may adopt, under its home rule authority for a school purpose, policies allowing sunshine meetings for board and district advisory committees and other sunshine committees where a quorum is required to be physically present to be conducted by means of communications media technology during a public health emergency, including a pandemic, and authorize the board chair, superintendent, and general counsel to sign the related documents.
Motion by
Motion.
Ms. Ayala, seconded by Dr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. COM 1, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I recommend the board proclaim November 9 through 13th, 2020 as Holocaust Education Week.
Motion by Ms. Brill, seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Ms. Brill.
Thank you, and this is very timely. So I am going to read this proclamation as I typically do. Whereas, sorry, my eyes have to focus. Whereas the Florida Department of Education has designated the second week of November as Holocaust Education Week. Holocaust Education Week has been set aside by the state of Florida and the school district of Palm Beach County to remember the victims of the Holocaust, as well as to reflect on the need for respect for all peoples. And whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored systemic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. 6 million Jews were murdered. Roma, people with disabilities, and Poles were also targeted for destruction or decimation for racial, ethnic, or national reasons, and millions more, including homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet prisoners of war, and political dissidents, also suffered grievous oppression and death under Nazi tyranny. And whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and governments, and whereas the school district of Palm Beach County should always remember the terrible events of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against hatred, persecution, and tyranny. And whereas the school district of Palm Beach County should actively rededicate ourselves to the principles of individual freedom in a just society. And whereas November 9, 2020 through November 10, 2020 marks the 82nd anniversary of Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. And whereas during Kristallnacht, hundreds of synagogues in Germany and Austria were burned and destroyed, businesses and homes were ransacked, scores of innocent Jews were killed, and thousands of others were arrested and sent to concentration camps. And whereas Kristallnacht serves as a prelude to the Holocaust and to systemic mass murder on a scale never before seen in the human history, and whereas the reign of Nazi government marks one of the darkest periods in civilized history, and whereas the commemoration of this unprecedented event reminds us all of our solemn duty to keep alive the memory of the millions who perished during the Holocaust, and to ensure through education and mutual respect that the acts of genocide shall never again occur. Now, wherefore, be it resolved that the Superintendent and School Board of Palm Beach County do hereby proclaim the week of Monday, November 9, 2020 through Friday, November 13, 2020 as Holocaust Education Week in memory of the victims of the Holocaust and in honor of the survivors, as well as the rescuers and liberators, and further proclaim that we should work to promote human dignity and confront hate whenever and wherever it occurs. Done this 17th day of November, 2020 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you.
Board members, is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. COM2, Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the board proclaim November 2020 as Homeless Child and Youth Awareness Month.
Motion made by Mrs. Andrews, seconded by Mrs. Whitfield. Mrs. Andrews?
Thank you. Proclamation, Homeless Child and Youth Awareness Month, November 2020. Whereas, responding to the increasing number of homeless families with children, President Ronald Reagan in 1987 signed into law the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, guaranteeing equal access to a free, appropriate public education to children and youth experiencing homelessness. And whereas the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act requires every school district to appoint a local liaison for homeless education to ensure proper identification, immediate enrollment, and linkages to other educational and community services for which students experiencing homelessness are eligible. And whereas every school district in the state has designated local homeless education liaison who is responsible for ensuring the homeless students' educational rights are observed. And whereas 4,542 homeless children and youth were identified within the school district of Palm Beach County during the 2019-2020 school year. And whereas the community, we need to do everything we can to help stabilize and support families in economic distress. And that includes ensuring that homeless children and youth have equal access to quality education and all of the support we can provide. And whereas the McKinney-Vento program of the Department of Safe Schools, School District of Palm Beach County works to remove barriers often encountered by students experiencing homelessness in enrolling, attending, and succeeding in school, while increasing awareness of the issues facing homeless children and youth. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the superintendent and the school board of Palm Beach County do hereby proclaim November 2020 as Homeless Child and Youth Awareness Month. Done this 17th day of November, 2020 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Frank A. Barbieri, Jr., Esquire, Board Chair. Dr. Donald E. Fenoy, the second superintendent.
Mrs. Whitfield?
Thank you. I just want to mention, as this proclamation stated, 4,542 homeless students. Those numbers are from last year. And last year, compared to this year, is a totally different world. The children are experiencing homelessness at higher levels than ever before, and we're having a harder time finding them and getting our hands on them to keep them in school and give them services. So I hope that as we go forward with our planning for this year, that we consider putting additional funds towards this program. I know that they're really struggling to keep up with the demand, and so I think our numbers are going to be very, very high this year. So I just wanted to mention that as we put forward this proclamation, the need is greater than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitfield. Any other discussion? Mrs. Andrews?
And I just want to say thank you for the team that truly work with our homeless students, their compassion, their passion, working with these students and finding them the necessary services for their success. We have the teams all across Palm Beach County. Take a moment to reach out to them and tell them thank you. They're into all of the different neighborhoods doing all this hard work so that we can save all children, those that are homeless who are in need. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Dr. Robinson?
Sorry, I just feel the need to say this. So this we do need to do this work, and we do need to support homeless children and hungry children and all. But it just keeps bouncing in my head. We are a big, influential institution, right? At some point, I think that we need to use our voice to leverage this community to look at the root causes. Because there are reasons that children are hungry. There are reasons that children and families are homeless, right? And so while we need to try to address the need in front of us, I think that we need to push for a much larger discussion. I know the county commission has had, done work on homelessness, but we need to partner with whoever, everybody, to get to the root causes and stop just, giving the Tylenol to the guy with the brain tumor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. P2, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I recommend the board approve the personnel addendum as submitted.
Motion by Mrs. Brill, seconded by Ms. Ayala. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. That takes us to board discussion items. The